Hi, and welcome to the first segment of the video tutorial for Blue Cala Patterns Snowdrop. This is, so far, of Celine's patterns, this is my favorite. And in this first segment, we're going to get as far as getting the zipper assembly done. So this is going to be the top of the handbag where it opens up. And let's get started and let's get to this. I'm going to follow as close as I can to Celine's instructions. I may have some little tips or tricks along the way that I find make things easier. But again, I'm not saying my way is the best way. It's just what works for me. So you hear me say that a lot in my videos, but that's just kind of the way it is. I want to make suggestions to you, but I'm not trying to tell you that that my way is the only way to do things. So in the instructions, we're going to do the little zipper casing. So I'm going to demo it. I'm actually using, I'm going to be using the little metal zipper ends for my bag, but I will demo how to make this little casing. I'm going to be using number 5 zipper tape. Now make sure before you put this on that you actually have your zipper slide or your pull put on, because it goes on going this way so that it zips up going this way. So this will be the bottom of it, so that when it's unzipped, this is the bottom. So set that aside. And what she's asking us to do is on the 3-inch side, fold that in half. So I'm going to fold this and I'm going to just crease it down the center and I'm going to press it. Then the next thing to do is to open it up and we're going to fold this up 1/2 inch. So this is a little trick that works for me. So if I want to fold this up 1/2 inch, I can either measure that and make sure that it's 1/2 inch, or what I find much easier is just to actually mark this. So I'm going to mark it at 1 inch. I'm going to be doing both sides. So I'm going to mark both sides at 1 inch. So if I fold 1.5 inches into 1/2, I end up with 1/2 inch. So that's what's going to happen on both sides. So that's what I'm going to do to start off with. So when everything is pressed, this is what my result is. Now again, we're going to open this up and I'm going to fold this over 1/2 inch on each side. So once again, so I'm going to be able to just press both of these in. So this is my completed and pressed zipper casing. And this, I'm actually going to just tuck this into the folds here. Just like that. And top stitch all the way around. And that's complete. My preferred method is to use some variation of a zipper end or a strap end. These ones are by Emmeline Bags. And this just kind of gets tucked into here. And I have a little bit of a method that I use because there's quite a bit of room in here. And I mean, I can glue it in, which I will use some glue as well. But putting in the screws to hold things in here, if there's too much room, the screws don't really grab anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of Peltex, and I'm going to, I'll show you, I do a little kind of a little insert into there. So I have a little scrap of Peltex here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my hardware, and I'm going to just kind of make a little bit of a template here. And I know that this going into here is going to be quite a bit smaller. This is quite a bit smaller opening here. So I'm going to cut it out a lot smaller, even just to begin with. So I'm cutting this a generous 1/8 inch smaller than what I had written, or what I had traced out to begin with. And I can already tell that this is going to be too big. I don't have this very perfect, but it's not really all that important. So that is going to fit on there. And I'm going to make it smaller as well, shorter. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this onto the end of my zipper. I need to put my zipper pull on first. And then I'm just going to glue this, wrap this around. And I'll show you the idea of what ends up happening. Is there. So then that's more what I end up with for the end of my zipper. And I'll straighten this out a little bit more and all of that. So that's a little bit neater. And if I need to cut that Peltex down, I wasn't in very far. And I can see too that I'm going to have to really trim that Peltex, because I don't want to see it on this side either. I want it to be way up inside there. So one good thing might be just to mark there. And I know I have to cut it shorter than that even. All I want is enough of the Peltex just to fill that in. So where these little screws are, that's going to give a little bit of fullness in there. So the screws just have something to kind of grab onto. Before we go any further, I better put my zipper pull on so I don't forget to do that. I'm going to show you how I do it with the zipper tape. The method that I find the easiest is I open up my zipper tape a little bit. I cut off about 1/4 inch so that I have one side longer than the other. Take my zipper pull, get that so it's started. There we go. And I've got it, the opening, so that it's nice and even. And there we go. In the instructions, she asks for 14 inches of zipper teeth if you are using zipper tape. Now this is my personal preference, and that's only because I've done quite a few of these. I just like to have a little bit longer of a tail at the end, and you can absolutely go with 14 inches. Just my personal preference again is to go 16. So I'm going to cut my tape off at 16 inches. But again, 14 inches is enough. Okay. And I'm going to glue my end down. And this is only because I'm using this this style of bottom on it. So I'm just going to set that aside. I'm not going to put the end on yet. I don't want it to get scratched. So I'm just going to put it back in its bag. Once this is glued onto here, that's going to keep my zipper from coming off the bottom end. I can also, once this is dried and set up and stuff, I can just put a couple of stitches across there as well. I'm just going to demo this again. Now this is, Celine in her instructions is using prepared zippers. So this is just one that I have sitting here. This is a number 3. But what she's asking you to do is to just 45 these over. Now with prepared zippers, I find they work really, really well just to do it this way. Very clean. You don't have very much bulk and stuff with them. So with a prepared zipper, just fold it over, no problem. When it comes to zipper tape, you have all of these teeth to deal with. And I find that if I try to fold this back, because of all of the bulk in here, it just doesn't work for me. It seems to be okay until I actually try and sew it, and then it always moves on me and shifts. So what I have found, and I have another little video just on this, is that if I fold this over, instead of going backwards, I'm going to the side. So if I fold this over sideways, at a 45-degree angle, I have a lot better luck with that. Now I'm going to, once I get this position, I don't have it quite right here. That's better. What I'm trying to do is even up these edges a little bit. And I'm just going to put a couple of stitches around this edge just to hold this in place. So I'm just going to throw a couple of stitches in here. I'm just going to go in between the teeth and wrap this around. Doesn't matter whether it's the right color or not, because I'm making sure that my stitches are outside of the seam allowance, or within the seam allowance, I guess. So those stitches are going to be inside. And it's just a temporary thing, so I'm not too worried about having knots and tying it off and all of that good stuff. So there I go. So if I pull this up to the top, I'm nice and even up here. And I have fairly squared corners. This one maybe could have been pulled a little bit tighter. And sometimes I do the side a little bit as well, just to, it helps square that off a little bit more too. So here are my 4 zipper panels. Zoom out a little bit. So these are what my zipper is going to get sewn into. Now here I'm going to deviate just slightly from the instructions. I'm using vinyl. This is the vinyl. It's really kind of cool. It's kind of ribbony looking. I have done some testing for myself to make sure that my machine will be able to handle the thicknesses that I'm going to have to top stitch through. So, and actually, I'll just show you. So what I've done is I've simulated, I've sewn these two pieces together, folded them back, and top stitched. So this is what I end up with, and I know that my machine with heavier top stitching thread, it's going to go through it. So I know that I can use vinyl for my zipper assembly. So these are the 4 zipper panels. Because I'm using vinyl, I can't press it, press the edges. I'm going to use double-sided tape. So this is 1/4 inch double-sided tape. Going to go right onto the edge because I want to fold this back 1/4 inch. So I'm only going to do that actually on one edge of each piece. If you're using fabric, then all you have to do is press that back 1/4 inch. So again, using my little method, if you drew a line at 1/2 inch and folded it back, you'd have a perfect 1/4 inch hem. And all the fun of double-sided tape, trying to get the backing off of it. There we go. So this I'm going to try and fold only 1/4 inch back. And I'm just going to throw some clips on that just to hold it. And I'm going to do that with all 4 pieces. So I have my 4 pieces. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with this side. So I'm going to just clip these together. Again, same thing if you're doing fabric, you can pin it. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on the 2 pieces, sewing so that the 4 of them, I guess, make 2 pieces. Mathing is hard. And these are going to, now in the instructions, she would have you fold this back, and you can do it that way. There's nothing wrong with that. I find it more difficult to match everything up. So if I sew a seam allowance or seam on both sides, it makes it easier for me. So I'll show you my next step. So again, I'm deviating from the instructions. I find this method works for me, and I find it personally a little bit more simple. So I'm going to open my zipper up so I can separate this. Now here is the end that is sewn together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck this in. So I'm going to stay lined up with the edge here, but I'm going to, hopefully you can see that, tuck my zipper right up into the corner. You may find that it's easier to baste this. So just to leave this side open and just baste this in first.
If that's the easiest thing for you, then you should do that. It does make a huge difference. If you struggle at all with zippers, just do it one bite at a time. Don't try to match everything up at the same time. Just take that extra minute or two, and it will make all of the difference in the satisfaction that you get. So I'm going to try this one my way. I'm tucking that up into there, and again, because it's vinyl, I can't pin it, so I have to clip it. If you baste this in first, make sure that you only do about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then you won't have to take out any basting stitches. Now you can see my edges are not going to line up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line them up. It's a little bit difficult because I've got all of these clips in here. But I'm going to line this up a little bit better. And you can see I've got just a little bit of fullness right here. And I'm just going to unclip kind of and just ease that in. And that was actually pretty easy to do. I can see as well I have a little extra fullness here. And I may just need to go along and just just ease things in a little bit better. So there I go. And now I'm going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I'm going to go all the way down. So here I did both of them. Both sides have the zipper done exactly the same way. So now I have my corners to deal with. And I'm going to clip those back. Take a little bit of the bulk out of there. And I'm going to be quite careful about this, or gentle, I guess. And I'm just going to push this out. You can see my stitches a little bit here, but I think in the grand scheme, once everything is done and top stitched, it's not going to be that noticeable. But you can see here, it seems to have folded funny on me. Oh, is that the wrong side? It is so. Okay, crisis averted. If this had been on the right side, I wouldn't have liked that because I've got that little kind of a schmutzy thing there. That's my very official word, schmutzy, if it's just not quite right, or dirty. So there we go. So this is all kind of weird here because this isn't folded back. But I could I'll just throw a couple of clips in just to hold this the right way. When I top stitch, this is all going to lay flat. So when that zipper assembly is done up, that's what I end up with. Now, of course, these are going to be more square. But that's what, oh, sorry. There we go. So that's what I end up with. So now I'm going to top stitch this. So I'm going to go all the way across and down, and same with this side. Now what I'm going to have to watch for at this end is that these are lined up and square. I'm not loving the fact that I can see this. This is really quite thick vinyl. So I may just trim that out a little bit. Of course I don't have it here with me, but if I had a little bit of pink marker, that would actually probably go a long way just to kind of cover that up a little bit. So you know how we all kind of have those days and where we kind of seem to lose our sojo? That was me yesterday, actually. I was struggling a little bit, but I'm back. And I'll tell you what I did. When I was working in the last segment, I showed you I had white, because I'm sewing with white thread, because I don't always match my thread to everything. So, and I guess looking back at it now, I probably would have, because with this color of vinyl. But now to go back and redo it, no, it's just not going to happen. So I'll tell you what I did. Also, over on this edge, right here, I don't have these clipped, and I will do that right now. And I'll show you what happened there as well. So I clipped a little bit away from the edges so that it wasn't so thick, and I can take those clips off. But what I ended up with is this. You can see that in there, and I'm really not happy with it. I wasn't sure what to do yesterday, and so that's why I just I stopped filming. But I did come up with a solution. Now, I'm not saying that this is maybe the ideal solution, but it is. If I was making this as a customer purse, I would probably not do this. I would figure out something else, or instead of going with the vinyl, I would maybe go with fabric instead. But this does work. So I have a pink felt marker. Now, first of all, anywhere that I can see that I have stitches that show, And I'm just going to actually just color this. This might kind of look really cheesy, but it actually works. So I've just kind of colored that. It actually works over here. And I'm going to be really careful because I don't want marker all over the place. But I'm just going to add a little bit of color. I've got a few that are pulling a little bit here. We got a lot of thickness there. And then with the tension that's put on it. Let me see if I can get in here. There we go. So now I've found a solution to the little problem that I had. Innovation. And then on the other side here, where I've colored in there, when I go and I top stitch this, I haven't really changed anything, but you won't be able to see it. So that's my main thing. Is I'm going to trim those little guys out of there as well. I just want to hide things because I mean, that wouldn't look good. So there we go. A solution to kind of a small problem. So I'm just going to show you how I'm top stitching here. I'm at my machine. I have a little starter going here. I was having some problems. Specifically, I'm using a heavier top stitching thread. This is a polyester. When I have access to this weight in a nylon thread, I think I will be going to nylon. Not super happy with the polyester. For one thing, it's not bonded, and so it unravels a little bit. I'm just having some difficulties with it, but it matches my my bag, the color does, so that's why I'm going to continue using it. But I'm having a little bit of problems when I'm starting off. I'm getting some nesting. So I'm starting off with the starter patch first, and then just going to go right into top stitching the rest of it. Remember, when you're top stitching, always top stitch on the same side. So I had when I did this one, I had this facing upward, because there is a little bit of a difference between your top stitch stitches and your bobbin stitches. Always make sure that you stick to top stitching the same side. So I'm just going to continue on here. And so I'm just gonna have to kind of pull, because I can't press because I'm using vinyl. I don't get to press it down in place. I've got a little bit of thickness there, so I'm just gonna let it work through it. And then when I can, I'll show you this. When my zipper pull is out of the way, then I can move over. Then I can grab both of these pieces and just pull a little bit. Pull that seam open. The thread I'm using here is a Tex 70 weight. And I do have it in both the top and the bobbin. Now I'm going to be coming up to some real thickness here. So I'm going to Just really let it do its thing. I'm just pulling a little bit on the back just to, it's having a hard time going through that vinyl. I've got probably 8 layers of vinyl there, so it's no wonder it's having a little bit of difficulties. Just going to reposition a little bit. And I'm just going to hand crank just a little bit more here. Yep. And yeah, this is why I don't like this thread. And I've got some thread that's shredded here. So I'm just going to fix this up and get back to it. So I'm just going to show you here. I've unpicked going back a little ways. I've got some holes there. As long as I continue on and if I can stay in that line, I'll cover up those holes. But before I go any further, I'm going to throw just a little dot of fray check on that stitching. And because I don't have a cloth here. So I'm going to, that's the top. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. I want to maintain the integrity of the stitching that I do have there. And I'm going to go back a couple of stitches and I'm going to place my first stitch in one of the existing holes. So I'm just hand cranking right now, and I'm trying to make sure that I stay in the same holes. Normally I would just go ahead and stitch this, like I wouldn't hand crank it. But because I'm going through a significant thickness, that's more of my problem than actually matching the holes. Not an ideal situation, but it's not too bad. I'm also, with the long tails from where I started, I'm going to pull those to the back. I'm going to pull them to the back, and again, I'm just going to put a little bit of fray check. I'm going to try to. There we go. There we go. I'm being kind of messy about all of this. Now this is the tail from where I left off originally. I just left that tail. I was just kind of letting that freight check dry a little bit, and I'm going to clip that right off. So again, it's not absolutely perfect, but I was going through some pretty major thicknesses there. So. And then I'm just going to clip this back, these back little ones off. So here is my zipper assembly. Again, not all of my stitching is absolutely perfect. One of the things is I am not a professional. Well, I guess I'm getting more professional. But I am, how would I put it? I would say I'm the foreman of a one-man crew. I am the producer, the director, the writer, the creator. I'm the everybody here. So I do not have a big production crew behind me. I don't do all of this stuff first. That's why everything you guys see is kind of honest and raw. But that's the way I roll. So you wanted the real me, you get it. So anyway, you know, to do this over again, maybe I would have done it in fabric. But this is kind of a high use area, and it's going to get dirty faster. On my very first one, I've got, it got pretty dirty up here because you're zipping it, you're always reaching in, you're opening up the opening with your hands. So I will, I guess, sacrifice maybe some of the perfection of having everything so nicely pressed and easy to top stitch, all the perfect stitches. I'll sacrifice a little bit of that to be able to use vinyl. And this is really quite a thick vinyl. My machine, you saw, it struggled a little bit to get through it. But where there's a will, there's a way. And whether it be your needle size, that makes it easier to do bigger top stitching, that kind of thing. Needle size, I'm using a size 116 top stitch needle because the eye on a top stitch needle specifically is bigger than a regular needle. So all of those little things help. I do really love my Jukies, as if you follow me, you already know that. They do have power. They're straight stitch only, so they just do it really, really well. So anyway, that's where I'm at with, that is the completed zipper assembly. Again, I will put my hardware on after. This is long setup now. So this is all glued. There's no danger of, when I unzip this, of this coming off. So it's all good. At the very end, I'll put my hardware on because I want the least chances possible of that getting scratched. So that's where I'm at with that. So hopefully you guys get that far and can get that zipper